Welcome to the Cyber Life Podcast, where we help you learn cybersecurity best practices, give you a weekly update on the latest cybersecurity news, and share valuable career advice. Hey everyone, it's Ken. In this episode, we're going to speak again with Hugh Shepard. Now, if you haven't checked out the first episode with Hugh, where he talks about living abroad in your cybersecurity career, I'll leave a link below in the description. Go ahead and check that out first, and then this episode will make a lot more sense for you. So in this episode, Hugh's coming back on just to share some of the resources, some of the tips he has around living abroad, and some of the places to check out for like jobs and things like that. So without further ado, let's dive right into Hugh. If you need to know more about him, or if you want to watch the past episode again, that information's in the description. You can check that out. But again, let's dive in and just learn from Hugh on some of the resources he's used as he's lived abroad. So thanks again for coming back on the show, Hugh. So for those that missed the first episode, I'll link that in the description, where Hugh talks about living. He's a U.S. citizen, but he's talking about living abroad. And I think regardless of where you're actually coming from, whatever country is your home country, he'll have good information in that episode for you. And so in this episode, we want to kind of do a follow on and talk a little bit about some of the resources. And this episode's geared mostly towards U.S. people that are looking to live abroad, but some of the sites and things that Hugh mentions are going to be relevant for anyone essentially in any country. Just some of the websites and things like that might change based on where you're actually from. So without further ado, Hugh, I just want to just jump right in. Like, let's say I'm someone in the U.S. right now, and I'm just sick of my job. You know, all these layoffs, all this stuff going on. Like, you know what? Let me go live in Thailand with Hugh. Hugh seems happy. He's in Thailand. Let me go to Thailand. Like, how do I do any research? You know, of course, I can Google Thailand, but like, are there any specific places you recommend I look at first to learn more about whether it's Thailand or whatever country I'm going to?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, thanks again for having me back on, Ken. But to answer that question, for especially for U.S. citizens, I definitely recommend going to the U.S. State Department website. They're going to have wherever there's a U.S. Embassy or at least a U.S. diplomatic relationship with the country. On that website, you can look up that country and get relevant info that is accurate and pretty straightforward. So again, as far as a U.S. person, U.S. State Department, but you could be from the UK or any other country. You're going to have something like a government agency that's equivalent to that, and that's the best place to start because at least you're going to get kind of some no nonsense information that's relevant to you as a citizen of your current country, that may be applicable like far as like any type of restrictions that the government has, like, hey, we don't recommend you travel there, this or that. So definitely start there. Then another source would be, again, as a U.S. citizen, would I would recommend is checking out the U.S. Embassy's website for whatever country that is you want to relocate to. So, like the U.S. Embassy, Thailand, check out that website and you'll get even more relevant info for that nation, especially as it relates to a U.S. citizen there. And also, you kind of get a feel of what's happening, because like a lot of times they'll have some kind of public affairs type stuff. You'll see if that embassy is how engaged they are with the local community, what type of initiatives and things are going on, and definitely, and also you even want to, once you decide to move to that country, you want to register with that local embassy so that they know, hey, there's a U.S. citizen here. So if in case something, crazy happens, they like, hey, we have a citizen that we need to get out, or that needs to be accounted for. So definitely want to start with the government, and the federal type sources and agencies first. And then another thing I would recommend would be CDC, Center for Disease Control. And that's pretty global. That's universal. I know they're headquartered in Atlanta. Only reason I know that because I used to watch The Walking Dead. All right, let me not derail the conversation. But anyhow, the CDC website is good because they'll tell you what vaccines you need to be aware of or have taken if you're going to relocate to that country. So you make sure you know you're vaccinated. Also, any type of health concerns you should be worried about, like if it's a high malaria occurrences in that country, or any other type of health issues you should be aware of. And then another one I would recommend, it's not uh, a government or federal type of website, but there's a company called The Lonely Planet, and they put out great resources for travel, for tourism. And they'll have guides on countries. They'll have guides on specific regions of that country. They'll like it's a wealth of information, And I'm old school, so some of the books are pretty thick, but they're meant for people to like stick in a backpack or stick in a suitcase and take along with them. And of course, you can get the e copies of them as well. So those are some of the main sources I would recommend to get really accurate and relevant, no nonsense information, useful information when you're researching a country you want to go to.
So for those that listened to the previous episode, Hugh and I talked about he actually is originally from Ohio here in the United States, and Hugh's very famous there for being the guy that got lost walking around on his own. And so Hugh, I want to ask you, so other people don't get lost when they're like trying to look at to try to find the actual official website of the
Right.
country they're looking to go to. Is there kind of any process or any place they can look to make sure that they're not like looking at some threat actor site, they're actually looking at the legitimate website of that company, or excuse me, that country?
Yeah, you could always do a Whois Lookup on that website or that IP address. Just kind of give you an idea like whether or not it's legit. So if you're looking at the what you think is the visa site for India, and then you do the Whois Lookup, and you notice that the IP is registered for like a Latin American country, then that's probably not for or for a Latin American region, or it's under the name of a Russian organization. That's probably not the legit website for India. And also, you just kind of look at the website. If it looks a little kind of sketchy here and there. One of the giveaways would be, in the U.S. it would be a .gov or something similar. And I think it's kind of similar with some of the other countries, but if it's like a .com or not a what would be like a government type entity, like registration, then you want to be kind of concerned about that. And especially if you're asking for money, like, oh yeah, I paid uh, you know $50 up front just to get your visa process going, then it's probably not legit. And then another process you could do is go to a U.S. embassy or State Department website, and usually they'll have the connecting link to a legitimate visa, website for that country, whichever one you're considering moving to. So do that process instead of just doing the Google lookup and looking at clicking on the first uh, response that comes up that says India visa or Thai visa. To make sure you're not going to some site that's going to scam you.
So it sounds like I can't do my visa scam now because you just warned everyone. So I'll have to figure out another way to make billions of dollars. So along the lines of money, right? Like we've talked about it, even in the past episode, we talked about like living in another country, things like that. But the vast majority of people out there don't come from money. They're not Oprah. They don't have billions of dollars. They haven't won the lottery or anything like that. So like are there any websites, here in the US, there's job boards, LinkedIn, of course. You can go to like Indeed or monster.com or any of these number of popular websites. And based on the country, there are certain websites that, are popular in that country for finding jobs. But are there any places that you recommend, Hugh, that people take a look at if they're thinking about, okay, good, I want to move to, whatever country and just kind of, experience a different culture and things. Are there any websites that you recommend people look at to try to find some of those jobs?
Yeah, sure. And especially if not only move overseas, but focus more on development type work, which is a broad term, but it encompasses just about any industry. But a really good resource would be devx.com. They have it's basically like a job board or Indeed type job board for the development type uh, roles. So be it working in sustainable energy or working in helping build someone build IT infrastructure, say in Cambodia or somewhere, in the developing world, then that's a good resource to check out. And another one similar to that would be DevNet Jobs. I think it's .com, maybe .org. Might do a Whois Lookup on that to make sure. But DevNet Jobs is a good source website to check out. Same thing, focus more on development jobs. So like in nations that are developing. However, I mean that's a broad term, and basically from what I've seen from my experience looking at these sites, pretty much anywhere around the world, you'll see jobs available. Maybe not so much in Europe, like say in Western Europe, or say you're like Japan or Australia, but definitely Southeast Asia, South Asia, uh, the South America region, African region. So, some interesting places, some, interesting opportunities. And another source that probably a lot of people, may not even consider would be the IEEE website. And I'm not going to attempt to say the acronym. I know it's it's the International Engineering Group, and I'm a member. And it's sad I don't remember what all three E's stand for, but they have a very broad community across the globe. And you can be part of the IEEE in Africa. You can be be part of the IEEE in, say, Japan. Numerous places. But within these different groups are sectors of the IEEE. You can, they have job boards, they have opportunities to volunteer, they have opportunities to get engaged, with that community there. And especially for us folks who work in IT and tech type roles, it's the perfect kind of go-to source. And another one I found pretty useful, or at least informative, especially for those who may want to live more of a digital nomad type of lifestyle, have a little flexibility. Virtual Vocations is good. Virtualvocations.com. And another one, I forgot the list. What was it? FlexJobs.com. So they're pretty similar, but they have a lot of opportunities as far as like, hey, you can do this job from anywhere in the world, or you can do this job from anywhere in Europe or wherever. So that's a flex, that gives you some flexibility as well. It's like, well, I live in Thailand, but the work I'm doing is in Croatia, but I'm an American. It's like, you're just all over the place, but you're still able to maintain your career. And then, of course, there's a couple other ones that are pretty useful when it comes to like kind of like gig type roles, Upwork, Fiverr, and there's numerous others. I think it's called Top Total or Topple. Um, I can't remember, but there's several others, but definitely Upwork and Fiverr I find are pretty good.
I think IEEE, and I could be wrong, so listeners, feel free to correct, or I mean, you can just Google it yourself, but I think it stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, if I recall correctly. But again, if you're listening to this, just
Yeah.
Google it and you can figure out what that is. And I think their website is the IEEE.org, if I recall correctly. So here in the US, Hugh, I mean, as far as like where opportunities lie, like industries, healthcare is obviously huge here. The tech companies, startup scene, things like that. But in other countries, like from your experience, are there kind of focus areas or industries where you're seeing like more opportunities, whether that's like an actual quote unquote corporate job, or whether that's more freelance work? Like, are there certain verticals that you see more opportunity in? And just, you could speak from the Thailand perspective if you want to, but like, are there, just for people that are maybe saying, well, I've got experience in healthcare, like, is that big where there's a lot of opportunities, or is it more kind of general stuff? Is it hospitality? Like, where's kind of the major job, area, if you will, overseas?
Yeah, sure. Well, one that I've noticed from my time here in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, and even South Asia, like the India and Nepal area, the hospitality sector, especially now that COVID restrictions have been pretty much uh, put on the back burner and people are getting out and traveling more. I'm seeing a lot of opportunity in the hospitality sector for people to get involved in the work abroad, like say in hotels, a lot of the resorts, and even cruise ships. That's one that a friend of mine from years ago works in IT, and she would go on these boats on these cruise ships and pretty much travel. I won't say the world, but at least in her region, like I think South America, and had opportunity to, basically work and, get a little vacation all together. But the hospitality sector, again, especially with the hotels and resorts, from what I've seen here in Thailand, a lot of opportunity because everyone's going to need IT. Everyone needs, especially at these resorts, everyone wants their Wi-Fi. So they're always going to need someone to make sure that's maintained properly. And then there's also larger facilities, be it data centers, be it regional, or be it local within the country, where they need people who are specialists or, IT people, cybersecurity people to make sure these facilities are functioning properly. And then just to give an example, recently, my wife and I were at a resort here in Thailand, and so we were like by the poolside and see a young lady, and she said to us, Swati Ka, which is hello in Thai, but she said it with a Spanish accent. and, and I looked at her and like, she doesn't look Thai. And after a day or so and maybe a beer or so, I was bold enough that like, hey, where are you from? And she's like, oh, I'm from Colombia. I'm here on a I can't like sabbatical or kind of exchange program, working in the hotel industry, this resort industry. And she said, yeah, I'm here for like 6 months. And then I was like, oh, so we had a kind of a nice conversation, and she mentioned how they have a lot of opportunity to work in these different places across the globe, as long as that the company she works for has a presence there. So something to consider if that's the kind of lifestyle type of career you want to live. Why not? Especially if you're young and single. Yeah, check it out. Something worth exploring. And then, Ken, I know you mentioned healthcare. Of course, there's doctors needed everywhere, so there's always an opportunity to get involved as far as healthcare. I don't work in the healthcare profession, but I will say I'm pretty sure there's some probably laws or policies far as just showing up saying, hey, I'm a doctor somewhere, and give me a job. I'm pretty sure you have to have some sort of make sure your credentials are in order and maybe follow a different process as far as working there. But still, within the healthcare industry, that gives you opportunity to go, I would say pretty much about anywhere. And then, you
Well,
can
so
always,
not
oh,
not
go
to
ahead.
not to interrupt you. So are you trying to tell me that it's not like those Holiday Inn Express commercials from back in the day? Like, I can't just stay overnight at the Holiday Inn Express and become a surgeon. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not going to happen, Ken,
Bummer, man, bummer. There goes, you just crushed my dream, Hugh. You just crushed
I'm
my dream.
sorry, man. It's just, no, it's not going to happen, bro.
So, obviously, and you mentioned the young woman from Colombia. Swatika, and so for those that want to learn some of the local language, are there any like, I mean, there's a ton of apps out there, right? There's all sorts
Oh
of
yeah.
programs. I mean, of course, Rosetta Stone, people love it or hate it, whatever, but there's a lot of them out there. I think what Duolingo, many of them. And by the way, we're not endorsing anything here on the show unless they pay us. But are there any apps that like you found helpful, or like any programs you found helpful, or anything that you found helpful as you and your wife kind of prepared to move to Thailand?
Oh yeah, definitely. Google Translate, Google Translator has saved my life since I've been here in Thailand because yeah, it's been challenging. But the beauty with Google Translator, the app on my phone, is I can type in what I'm trying to say, which may take a while. I'm not the quickest typer, but you can also just say what you're trying to say, in English, and it'll translate it into Thai or whatever language you needed to translate into. And they can either be, the person that you're trying to communicate with can either read it off the screen, or you can hit the button and it'll play the audio translation of it. And so that one has been amazing. And like Ken said, there's plenty of others, plenty others that are similar. I used one before in Nepal, and it wasn't that great. And I can't remember what the name of it was. And if I could, I wouldn't name it. But Google Translate has been a blessing, and I highly recommend that one. And then if you want to go old school, you can just get a book. Again, Lonely Planet, that I mentioned earlier, they have a lot of language books. But the only thing with that is, you're thumbing through the book, you're trying to find what you're trying to say, and it may not go that well. And then, if you're like me, then you read it, and then you got to pronounce it in that language. That doesn't always work out well. But trusty Google Translate, you can't go wrong because it's going to take all that unpredictability of your pronunciation out of the mix and do it for you. So highly recommend Google Translate. Or, hey, if you're good at learning languages, learn the language. Take a class, do an online class, go for it.
So are there any other things that people need to be mindful of? Like, I mean, as far as like cell phones, are there things they need to do with their cell phone? What about, I'm sure most places like we're US, so most places will accept a dollar. But like what, as far as like currency, as far as like cell phones, like what else do people need to keep in mind as they're planning to move?
Oh yeah, several things I've noticed that have been kind of had to be aware of and had to really, incorporate into my cell phone usage. One being a VPN. Using a VPN, there's multiple VPN services out there. ExpressVPN or VPN. Again, not recommending any of them over any of them, specifically, but just saying that there's numerous VPNs that can be used. So, what happens, some of the challenges I've experienced was accessing some websites from the U.S. and I'm from, trying to access it from a IP outside of the North American region, and it gets blocked. So, you use a VPN, mass I'm going to say mass, but to use a VPN to log into a US location. And then it's like, oh, yeah, it's fine. And then you can see the website. And then another useful tip, especially if you're going to be, going to multiple countries, or you want to maintain your US SIM in a phone for convenience, having a dual SIM phone has been a blessing because again, quite often, sometimes, you're accessing, say, speaking for myself, accessing my bank online. It's like, hey, who is this? From Thailand trying to access this U.S. bank online. We need to confirm your identity. We're going to send you OTP to your phone. And so previously, before I had my dual SIM phone, I had to switch the SIM out, and it just took forever. But now, dual SIM phone to switch back and forth, or just get a second phone. Get an inexpensive local phone or something. But it's good to have that ability to have a dual SIM or to maintain some sort of U.S. Um, SIM or phone access, especially if you're going to be here overseas for a while. And the beauty now, you can do voice over Wi-Fi and, make calls over Wi-Fi, and it's like no extra fees or anything for making international calls. And then another thing, app that has been quite useful on my phone is a currency converter. The one I use is called XE. That's X-ray Echo, phonetic alphabet currency converter. And I think they have a website as well. But it's great because you can put in multiple currencies. You can see like how much of this currency is equivalent, to $1. So you can avoid the mistake I made of tipping someone $30 by for like a $5 delivery. Don't want to do that. So you definitely want to make sure you know the value of your dollar compared to the local currency, so you're not, um, you know, overpaying something or being, hustled by someone. So what's another good one? Oh, and then WhatsApp, Viber, Vonage, any of the online like texting, Wi-Fi services for voice have been amazing because you want to stay connected with your friends and family. So any of those I recommend. I know I'm missing numerous others, but those are some of the main ones out there. And also you'll find when you go to some of the countries, some are more popular in other countries than others. I know in Nepal, Viber was very popular. Here in Thailand, they have a home, I believe it's a homegrown one called Line, similar to WhatsApp, similar to all of those, but that's the go-to one here that people like to use. Again, that's Line. That's Lima, India, November, Echo. And at first I was like, what is this? But it's actually pretty cool. And I think, it's free. So if folks just are interested, download it, check it out, play around with it. Um, I kind of rambled a lot here.
Yeah, it's all good, Hugh. So I think a key takeaway, if you're a waiter or waitress out there and you're going to interact with Hugh in Thailand, just hack that Z currency converter app and make it where it'll mess it up and he'll give you a $30 tip for a $5 order. I think that'll do
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So I mean, thanks again for coming on the show, Hugh. So if people visit Thailand, are you okay with them buying you lunch?
Uh, oh yeah, please.
I was say I was like, is he really turning down free food? What? So,
I was like, whoa, is there a trick? You're like, yeah,
yeah,
please.
yeah, you never know with me, man. But anyways, I mean, thanks for coming on. I know. So for those that don't know, obviously I'm in the U.S. Hugh's in Thailand. There's a time difference. It's I think he said 11 o'clock or so at
Yes.
night when we're filming this. It's in the morning here in the U.S. So I appreciate you coming on. And if anyone needs help, feel free to connect with Hugh on LinkedIn. Many of the resources that he mentioned, I'm going to find the websites and I'll, of course, make sure they're legit. And then I'll put them in the description for all of you listening. So you can just click on it and go from there. So thanks again for coming on, Hugh.
Oh yeah, no problem. Oh, and one more quick thing. World Clock Meeting Planner, perfect. Because like the time difference, you need to be able to know, the difference of time with the people if you're talking to people in the U.S. or somewhere else. So make sure you get like a time converter.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you're looking to secure your business better or build up your cybersecurity career, then check us out over at cyberlife.tv. That's CYBERLIFE.tv.